It was an ordinary night when the world fell into an extraordinary silence. The usual hum of machinery, the buzz of conversations, the distant rumble of cars on streets, and even the whispers of the wind, everything ceased. It wasn't a power outage, nor a technical glitch. It wasn't the aftermath of a natural disaster or a weapons silent strike. No, this was something far more perplexing. Earth simply stopped. Cale Verne, who had just joined the space station orbiting Earth, had never experienced anything like it. As a human unfamiliar with the station's alien inhabitants, Cale entered the cafeteria to find the usual chatter and clinking of utensils replaced by an eerie, suffocating quiet. His footsteps echoed louder than expected. His eyes met those of the alien crew members, who seemed unsettled by the silence. But more so, they seemed unsettled by him. He had no idea what was happening. People stood still, their faces frozen in confusion. Even the soft hum of the station's machines had come to a halt. Cale took a deep breath and attempted to call out. No voice came. The sound of his own voice had been swallowed by the void. This strange silence wasn't just the absence of noise. It felt like the world was holding its breath, as if everything around him was waiting for something. Yet for Cale, this wasn't just an odd, temporary malfunction. He had no idea that what was unfolding was not a random event. It was something bigger, something far beyond his understanding. As the crew of the station exchanged uneasy glances, they still hadn't realized the full scope of the disturbance. And neither had Cale. This silence wasn't just a breakdown in communication, it was a warning, one he wouldn't fully understand until much later. Cale Verne, the lone human aboard the space station, had always been an enigma. He had no family name, no origin that anyone could trace back to, and he certainly had no wealth to his name. When he arrived at the station, he was immediately labeled a det welder, a term that left him perplexed, as he had no idea what it meant. The alien crew, of various shapes, colors and species, gave him wary glances, their confusion and suspicion growing as they tried to make sense of his presence. Cale was just a man with a past full of secrets, a quiet determination, and a deep sense of curiosity. The station's crew had expected someone with wealth, or at least someone who had value in their eyes, but Cale was anything but. When he checked into his quarters, a simple mix-up in communication was all it took for the crew to classify him as a det welder. No one had realized this was just a misunderstanding, and from that moment on, the term was applied to him as though it was a label he couldn't shake. The aliens treated him like an outcast. They murmured in hushed tones about the threat he represented, all the while making false assumptions about his character. Cale had no idea what they were saying, but the constant mention of something like a death welder made him feel uneasy. Every interaction seemed tinged with uncertainty, and he couldn't understand why they feared him. Was it because of his human appearance? His quiet demeanor? Or was it simply because he didn't belong? Despite all this, Cale was determined to prove himself. He was just here to do his job, to work on the station, not to be an object of suspicion. What the aliens didn't know was that Cale was far more capable than they gave him credit for, and, soon enough, he would show them. The tension in the alien space station was palpable, as Cale Verne stood at the heart of the busy command center. The alien inhabitants, still under the misconception that he was a det welder, watched him closely, exchanging whispered words in their native languages, unsure of what to make of this human. Cale, unaware of the heavy expectations surrounding him, was simply trying to adjust to life in this alien environment. The first real sign of trouble came when the station's primary communication system malfunctioned, sending out strange signals that were incomprehensible to the aliens. Panic spread quickly as the crew tried, and failed, to diagnose the issue. With no immediate solution, the aliens, particularly the higher-ups, grew concerned. It was then that they turned to Cale, still an enigma to them, hoping that maybe, just maybe, the human's unusual presence could be a solution. "You must fix it, det welder," one of the aliens muttered, using the term that Cale had overheard being used to describe him. The human, sensing the urgency, stepped forward without hesitation, his mind racing through possible solutions. Kale quickly assessed the situation and, using a mixture of human ingenuity and trial and error, he found a way to override the alien technology using basic concepts that were familiar to him. It wasn't magic, it wasn't advanced technology, it was simple human resourcefulness. The station's systems began to stabilize, and soon enough, the communications were restored. The aliens, however, were not impressed by Kale's quick thinking. Instead, they recoiled in horror, their worst fears realized. The human was not just a simple debt welder with no resources, as they had thought. He was something far more dangerous. The crew believed Kale's knowledge had a much darker origin, one tied to death welders, creatures capable of immense destruction. The misunderstanding deepened, and Kale's reputation grew, but not for the reasons he would have wanted. The station's daily operations came to an abrupt halt when an alien tech malfunction disrupted the core systems. Lights flickered, doors failed to open, and critical data was lost. The station's alien engineers scrambled in a panic, unable to fix the issue, their advanced technology proving useless against the sudden failure. They couldn't understand why their own systems weren't responding. Kale watched from a distance, his mind already working through potential solutions. Unfazed by the chaos, he stepped forward, offering to help. The aliens eyed him warily, unsure if they should trust a death welder, but the situation was desperate. Reluctantly, they allowed him access to the malfunctioning system. Using nothing but his sharp problem-solving skills, Kale bypassed the station's complex alien protocols with ease, thinking of solutions that didn't rely on the advanced tech the aliens had mastered. He improvised with simple tools, relying on his resourcefulness, a human trait that had been passed down from generations of survival instincts. What the aliens saw as brute ingenuity was nothing more than an instinct to adapt and survive. Within moments, Kale had the station's systems back online. The alien crew stood in stunned silence, their initial skepticism replaced with awe and a lingering fear. They were convinced that a human, someone from a planet called Death World, must possess knowledge and skills far beyond what was immediately apparent. His ability to solve such a complex issue so quickly made them believe that he was harboring dangerous, violent knowledge. They assumed that human resourcefulness was simply another terrifying trait of the Death Welder species. Kale didn't realize it, but in solving their problem, he had only fueled their growing fears, and his role in their perception of humanity was beginning to take shape. After Kale's unexpected success on the station, his reputation as a death welder spread quickly throughout the galaxy. While the alien inhabitants cowered, uncertain of the extent of human capabilities, an entirely different group took keen interest in his actions. A secretive faction of Earth's spy agency, hidden deep in the shadows of the Union's government, saw an opportunity to leverage the misunderstanding about Kale's potential. The agency, always vigilant for ways to protect Earth's interests, had been monitoring the space station. They knew that humanity's position in the galaxy was precarious. Their species long forgotten, but still influential, especially in matters of survival. What Kale had unknowingly started, by solving alien problems and invoking fear, was just the kind of leverage they needed. It was time to make use of his Death Welder persona, amplifying the myth to keep any potential threats from targeting Earth. A covert agent, known only as Agent N, was dispatched to reach Kale. Disguised as an ordinary Union representative, Agent N approached Kale, offering him a mysterious contract. The spy agency had been watching his every move, and now wanted him for a covert mission. They needed his unique abilities to infiltrate alien factions, gather intelligence, and keep the galaxy's power structures off balance. In exchange, the agency promised resources to help Kale navigate this strange world where humans were so misunderstood. Kale, still clueless about the extent of the misunderstanding surrounding him, hesitated only for a moment. With Earth's name lingering in the shadows, he accepted the mission, unaware that he was now caught in the agency's complex web of manipulation. His newfound role as a spy would soon lead to even more absurd situations, and more misconceptions about the true nature of humanity. As the days passed, Kale's reputation continued to grow, though not in the way he intended. The misunderstanding about his Deathworlder status had spiraled into something far larger than he could control. What had started as a small problem on the space station now seemed to follow him wherever he went. The more Kale solved alien problems, the more his reputation spread like wildfire. The alien inhabitants, terrified yet fascinated, began to whisper among themselves about the mysterious human. His knack for solving complex problems, while using methods that seemed to bypass all conventional alien logic, only fueled their growing anxiety. They feared that his unorthodox techniques and his apparent ease at manipulating alien technology signaled something far darker. To them, it wasn't his intelligence or resourcefulness they feared. It was his deadly, unpredictable nature. Meanwhile, Kale was just trying to do his job. He didn't realize that with every action, every decision, he was cementing his place in galactic legend as the most dangerous being in existence. When the station faced a mechanical failure that would have been catastrophic for anyone else, Kale simply walked up to the problem, adjusted a few controls, and made it work. The alien engineers, unable to replicate his methods, stood in stunned silence as he casually fixed their problems. The more Kale accomplished, the more the myth of his Deathworlder status grew. Alien governments began to take note, secretly terrified of the human, not knowing whether he was a savior or a harbinger of destruction. They didn't understand him, and Kale wasn't trying to explain. He had no intention of becoming a legend, but with every success, he inched closer to the kind of reputation no one could escape. For better or worse, Kale Verne was now the galaxy's most infamous Deathworlder. Kale sat in a sterile, dimly lit room aboard the space station, his fingers tapping lightly on the cool metal table. Across from him, a group of stern-faced alien diplomats from the Galactic Union stood, their eyes cold and calculating. It was the first time they had summoned him to a private meeting, and Kale could tell something was amiss. "I'm sure you're wondering why we've asked you here, human," the High Chancellor said, his voice deep and filled with unease. "Your reputation precedes you." Kale tilted his head slightly, trying to suppress a grin. He knew exactly what reputation they were talking about. His supposed Deathworlder status had spread like wildfire across the galaxy, and he had become the subject of both fear and fascination. But Kale had never imagined it would lead to a job offer. Not this kind of job. "You've been recommended for a special assignment," the Chancellor continued, glancing at the others in the room. "A delicate matter has come to our attention. A growing threat that could destabilize the entire Union." Kale raised an eyebrow. His interest piqued. "And you want me to handle it?" The Chancellor nodded. "Precisely. We need you to infiltrate an enemy faction's headquarters, gather intel, and eliminate any threats you find. We've heard about your unique ability to deal with problems. We believe you're the only one capable of doing this." Kale leaned back in his chair, considering the offer. The idea of being thrust into galactic espionage was intriguing, but he knew it wasn't just his Deathworlder status they were after. They were trying to control him, to keep him in check, using the very misunderstanding about his nature to their advantage. "I'll do it," Kale said, his voice unwavering. "But don't expect me to follow orders blindly. I do things my way." The meeting ended with tense silence, but Kale knew this was just the beginning. He was about to embark on a mission that would make him an even bigger legend, whether the galaxy was ready for it or not. The sleek ship hummed softly as it drifted through the cold void of space, its trajectory set toward the enemy faction's stronghold. Kale leaned back in his seat, his eyes narrowed, staring out at the stars. The mission he had been assigned was straightforward, or so it seemed. Gather intelligence, eliminate any threats, and report back. But something gnawed at him. A feeling that there was more to this assignment than met the eye. As the mission continued, Kale began to notice the subtle signs, little inconsistencies that didn't quite add up. The briefings he had received were vague, and the encrypted files he'd been given were heavily redacted. His access to certain intelligence was restricted, as if someone wanted to keep him from knowing too much. One evening, as he reviewed the mission parameters in his quarters, a message flashed on his console. It was a direct communication from Earth's covert intelligence network, an encrypted message just for him. "Kale, We know what they've told you. But there's more to this than you've been led to believe, the message began, the voice of the agent carrying an urgent tone. The spy agency isn't just using you for intel. They want you to uncover something they're afraid of, something they've been hiding from the rest of the galaxy. Be careful. The message cut off abruptly, leaving Kale with a growing sense of unease. What were they really after? What were they hiding? And why had they chosen him for this mission? He stared at the screen, a thought swirling in his mind. The agency wasn't simply interested in the faction's secrets, they had their own agenda. And now, Kale had unwittingly stepped into a web of manipulation, where the truth was the last thing anyone wanted to reveal. Kale clenched his jaw. He had to play along for now, but the game had just changed. The air was thick with tension, as Kale made his way through the abandoned hallways of the space station. The mission was nearing its climax, and the secrets that had been carefully hidden from him were starting to unravel. He had just returned from gathering intelligence when he stumbled upon something that sent a chill down his spine. In the darkest corner of the station, a strange door that Kale hadn't noticed before flickered to life as he approached. A soft, almost imperceptible hum resonated from behind it. He hesitated for a moment, his instincts telling him to turn back, but curiosity outweighed caution. Kale opened the door and stepped inside. The room was unlike anything he had seen on the station before. The walls were covered in alien symbols that pulsed faintly with an eerie light. In the center of the room stood a figure, a being so alien that it defied any classification Kale had been taught. Its shape was constantly shifting, like liquid metal in motion. Its presence seemed to bend reality itself, the air around it distorting, as if the very laws of physics couldn't keep up. Kale felt his breath catch as the creature's form solidified, revealing a face, if it could be called that, smooth, featureless, and yet oddly familiar. It was as though this being was both entirely foreign, and yet somehow deeply ancient, as if it had watched the rise and fall of civilizations far beyond human comprehension. The creature's voice echoed in Kale's mind, not through sound, but through a profound sense of knowing. You are more than what they think you are, human. But you, like the rest, are a pawn in a game much larger than you can understand. The words lingered in his mind, chilling him to his core. Before Kale could respond, the Koei being faded away, leaving him alone in the silence. What had just happened? And more importantly, what game was he now a part of? Kale stood frozen in the room, his heart racing as the mysterious alien's cryptic words echoed in his mind. His thoughts whirled, trying to piece together the fragments of the encounter. What game was the creature talking about? And how was he, a simple human, involved in something so vast? The station's lights flickered, and a low hum reverberated through the walls. The eerie silence that had pervaded the station earlier seemed to return, now accompanied by a sense of impending doom. Kale's pulse quickened as he realized that the events he had unwittingly set in motion were no longer just about misunderstandings and alien suspicions. They were much larger and far more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. Leaving the strange room, Kale made his way back to the control center, his mind spinning with the implications of the encounter. The alien tech failure he had so easily fixed now seemed like a small piece of a much bigger puzzle. The whispers of Deathworld a threat suddenly didn't feel like just paranoia. The aliens on the station had been right to fear him, but not for the reasons they thought. He wasn't just some misunderstood human. He was becoming entangled in an alien conspiracy of untold scale. When Kale arrived at the command center, he was met by a flurry of activity. The station's leadership was in disarray. A new directive had come through, an urgent message from the Union, warning of a critical disturbance in the galaxy. It was linked to a series of anomalies that seemed to converge on Earth. The alien forces, it seemed, were not just concerned with Kale's presence, they were worried about what he had unknowingly triggered. And now, the consequences of his actions were reaching far beyond the station. The galaxy itself might be on the verge of chaos. Kale sat in the meeting room, surrounded by representatives from every corner of the galaxy. His once simple life on Earth seemed like a distant memory, as he now found himself at the heart of intergalactic politics. The weight of it all was suffocating. Alien leaders with their complex agendas, factions trying to use him as a pawn, and the constant pressure to keep up with a game he didn't fully understand. "I don't know what you expect from me," Kale said, his voice steady but filled with frustration. "I'm just a human. I didn't ask for this." The room fell silent as the alien representatives exchanged uneasy glances. The High Chancellor, a being of shimmering light and shifting energy, spoke first. "You're not just any human, Commander Verne. Your presence has triggered events we did not anticipate. Earth is no longer just a backwater planet. Your species, your potential, has made it central to our galaxy's fate." Kale clenched his fists, trying to suppress the unease that bubbled inside him. He had never asked to be the centerpiece of an intergalactic struggle. Yet, here he was, thrust into a position of influence that he didn't want, but couldn't escape. "You think I'm just a tool," he said, narrowing his eyes. "But you've underestimated humanity. You've been watching us, manipulating us for centuries. Now that you need us, it's too late. I will not be your pawn." The room went tense, every alien present acutely aware of the implications. For the first time in the meeting, Kale felt like he had the upper hand. The silence that followed was thick with uncertainty. Despite his resistance, he knew one thing for sure. Whether he liked it or not, his actions would shape the galaxy's future. And with that realization, Kale Verne knew he had a choice to make. Would he be an unwilling leader, or take control of his destiny? As the political storm raged on around him, Kale's mind couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that something wasn't right. The aliens had been too eager to use him, too ready to place him at the center of their conflicts. Their insistent focus on Earth's untapped potential, and the growing significance of humanity, felt more like manipulation than respect. But why? What was the true nature of their interest in Earth and its people? The answer came unexpectedly, one that no one in the room had anticipated. As Kale was about to step out of the meeting, a low, mechanical voice interrupted, emerging from a hidden speaker embedded in the walls. "Humanity is not what it seems." Kale froze, his pulse quickening as the voice resonated in his mind, not through his ears. It wasn't from any of the representatives. It wasn't an alien leader. It was something else, something hidden. "Who is this?" Kale demanded, his voice tense. "I am the architect of your existence," the voice replied. "I created your species, not as a force of nature, but as an experiment. A test of survival, intelligence, and adaptability. Earth was never your true home." The room fell into stunned silence. Kale's eyes darted around the chamber, trying to read the faces of the alien leaders. Some of them looked surprised, others, guilty. "The truth is that humanity was never meant to rise," the voice continued. "You are part of a much larger cosmic design, a creation placed in the universe for a reason you have yet to understand." Kale's world tilted on its axis as the weight of the revelation sank in. He had always believed in the power of humanity, their ability to shape their own future. But now, everything he had known seemed a lie. The galaxy, he realized, had been playing a game with them, a game they didn't even know they were part of. As the truth unfolded around him, Kale's mind began working overtime, piecing together the puzzle. Humanity was an experiment, a species created to test survival and adaptability under the guidance of some unknown cosmic force. The alien leaders who had been treating him like a tool, something to use, something expendable, had no idea they were dealing with someone who had just uncovered the ultimate secret. But instead of confronting the truth head-on, Kale saw an opportunity. He could use the misunderstanding to his advantage. The aliens had underestimated humanity, labeling them as debt welders, weak, and without resources. They saw Kale as an unpredictable, dangerous asset. They were afraid of him, and in that fear, he saw his chance. "I'll play along," he muttered to himself, a plan forming in his mind. He wasn't going to defy the architects just yet. Instead, he would harness their belief that humanity was a volatile, uncontrollable force. He could manipulate their perceptions, make them think that the threat of humanity's potential was something they should fear, not just respect. Over the next few days, Kale purposefully let slip small hints of humanity's might, random acts of sabotage, strategic miscalculations, all appearing to be accidental. He'd allow the alien factions to believe that Earth had once been home to fierce warriors who could rival the most advanced species in the galaxy. Let them believe that human ingenuity was more destructive than helpful. That Earth was a ticking time bomb. By the time Kale was ready to make his move, the aliens would be so entrenched in their fear of the Death Welder threat that they wouldn't even question his role. He had already proven that humanity could adapt, survive, and strike back when cornered. Kale's misdirection was working. The stage was set for the final act, humanity's unexpected rise. Kale stood before the gathered alien leaders, his thoughts a whirlwind of calculations and strategy. The time had come to reveal the truth, but it wouldn't be as simple as just explaining humanity's origins. No, this revelation would change the entire galaxy's view of humanity, and he needed it to land perfectly. Tan. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "You've all misunderstood," he began, his voice calm but carrying an undeniable weight. The room fell silent, the tension palpable. The alien leaders, who had been treating him as a mere tool, now watched him with wary eyes, uncertain of what to expect. Kale continued, "Humanity was never a threat because of our violence, our nature, or our potential for destruction. The truth is, we were never meant to be here, on this planet, in this galaxy. Earth is not our home. We are an experiment, a product of something far greater than you realize." The room erupted in murmurs, but Kale's steady gaze silenced them quickly. "We've been manipulated, placed here like pawns in someone else's game. And for all your fear of us, fear based on the belief that we were the Death Welders, a force that could undo your carefully laid plans, you were wrong. Humanity wasn't just placed here for destruction. We were meant to prove something far more important." He paused, allowing his words to sink in, watching the alien leaders carefully. "We were placed here to challenge your perceptions, to show you that even the most unexpected species, one you thought was weak, unworthy, could rise above what you expected. Humanity was never meant to dominate. We were meant to survive, to evolve, and to take control of our own future." Kale's eyes narrowed. "And now, we will. Because you've underestimated us. The true threat, it seems, was never us. It was your fear of the unknown." The galaxy, it seemed, had been shaken to its core. The room fell into an uneasy silence after Kale's revelation. The alien leaders, once so confident in their control over the galaxy, now seemed uncertain, their faces a mix of disbelief and fear. Kale had exposed the truth. Humanity was not the monster they had feared, but a species that had been manipulated, tested, and underestimated. Now, with this newfound knowledge, the galaxy would have to reckon with humanity's true role in the cosmic order. Kale stood tall, his presence commanding despite the overwhelming odds. "Humanity is not the enemy," he continued, his voice unwavering. "We never sought to conquer. We fought for survival, for the chance to decide our own fate. Now, we stand at a crossroads, not as pawns in your grand design, but as a force that will shape our future." His words reverberated across the room, and a shift began. The alien leaders, who had once viewed humanity with disdain and fear, began to reconsider their stance. Slowly, one by one, they nodded, their resistance weakening in the face of the undeniable truth Kale had laid bare. "You were right to fear us, but not for the reasons you thought," Kale added, his voice softer now. "We have learned, we have evolved, and we will no longer be part of someone else's plan. The galaxy may have been shaped by others, but humanity will carve out its own path. Whether you choose to accept it or not, we will stand side by side with those who wish to forge a future of true unity." The galaxy had always been a stage for larger forces, but now, humanity had a voice in the narrative. The future was theirs to shape, and the cosmos would never be the same again.